Hello everyone and welcome to another transfer show on Football Talk Podcast. My name is Ozzy and I'm your host for this evening. Firstly, thoughts and prayers to Diogo Jota and his family. Of course, he was laid to rest on Saturday afternoon. And the sort of the reaction we've got from the football community has been quite overwhelming. So it's been quite nice to see everyone united. But yeah, I'm still disbelief about the passing of our striker Diogo Jota. Um, Hence why I haven't done much content the last few days. But as I say, the show must go on. So for me, thoughts and prayers always with Jota and his family, and of course, as well as Andre Silva. Um, Good to see that the club have done the right thing in order to make sure that they are financially stable going forward. And I think that's the right stance from Liverpool. And it's not surprising. We are renowned to be a family club, and they've shown their true sort of colours when it comes to being a positive light, and in terms of being someone that is, a club that is actually looking out for their own people, which is what's happened here. So yeah, positive from Liverpool on that regards. Um, didn't feel right to talk about football in the last few days, but I think we have to we have to keep going. We will have to address Jota at some point in these kind of transfer discussions and all that sort of stuff. Um, but yeah, we'll do things in the right way and do it in a positive light going forward this season. So during the show, we'll speak about a few rumors that have been circulating the airwaves in the past 24 hours. And the first one is pretty much on the screen, and that is Luis Diaz to Bayern Munich. Now, shout out to Ozan Kabak, who was on my stream during the live watch along of Fluminense versus Chelsea. He mentioned that uh, apparently Luis Diaz has handed in a transfer request, which I wasn't aware of until earlier today. Um, I think that's quite wild for him to do that. Um, and honestly, we never know the ins and outs of these sort of things. But I'm not getting good vibes from Diaz and this whole sort of transfer situation right now. He's admitted numerous times that he's been in discussions with other clubs, but also saying that he's very happy at Liverpool. That doesn't align well to me. That doesn't make much sense. I think the last part in terms of him being happy at Liverpool is for him to just say it out loud in case he doesn't get that move away from the club. I think deep down he's very, very frustrated with his current situation because he hasn't received an improved contract since he joined the club. And he's at this age where he's probably thinking, I'm in my late 20s. Liverpool don't seem to be changing the tune. They don't want to offer me a new contract. Am I ever going to get that big contract before my football career ends? And I'm not saying he's going to retire anytime soon, but footballers don't tend to have long careers. It will be mid 30s, and that is the sort of the average rate. So he's probably thinking my next move has to be, you know, it has to be the one where he gets a big paycheck in the end. With that said, I do feel like it's a shame that the club haven't, offered him a contract. I do feel like it is thoroughly deserved. Um, in fact, I think the club should do everything in their power to try and keep him on board. And look, God bless his soul. After Diogo Jota's passing last week, Liverpool need to be smart in terms of how they move going forward. We can't just sell players for the sake of doing it now. We have to be very strategic. And right now, Bayern Munich are in desperate need to sign an attacker, especially someone that plays on the left. They've just sold Leroy Sané to Galatasaray. Unfortunately, Musiala suffered a horrific injury last week in the Club World Cup, and he'll be out for at least 4 or 5 months. So Liverpool do have a slight advantage in order to get the best or the most out of this deal. I think the club should be aiming to get around 70 to 80 million pounds, maybe even more. So the big question is for Diaz, what does he want from this? Does he want to just get a big paycheck out of his next move, or does he want to join a club where he will be fighting for honours? That's going to be down to Lucia. That's going to be sort of his ultimate decision because if he wants a paycheck, he can easily go to Saudi Arabia. They'll be willing to spend £80, 80 pounds, 80 million pounds without any hesitation, and he'll be paid very, very handsomely over there. But if he wants to stay in Europe, he might not get the salary bracket that he's after. He will probably get improved terms to what he's currently earning at Liverpool, but he won't be earning what he would earn if he went over to Saudi. So it depends what is his sort of focus right now or his objective. Does he want to just get a big paycheck before, he closes his career, whenever that happens? Or does he want to still play at the highest level, and that is in Europe, and play for one of the heavyweights in European football? So only time will tell. I think he's always had his eyes on a move to Barcelona. I think that's always been his dream and his aspiration. Whether they have the funds to conclude that deal, I very much doubt it, to be honest with you. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think Bayern Munich was the club that I did earmark alongside PSG. But then I thought with PSG, they would only sign someone like Diaz if a Barcola, for example, left the club, and they would see him as a replacement. Um, but yeah, feel free to let me know in the chat. What do you make of this Luis Diaz situation? Because it seems to be gathering a bit of pace now, which is a bit of a concern if I'm being honest. I really want Diaz to stay. That would be my choice because I feel like he is the right quality that we need in the squad. He covers multiple positions, and I already feel like the club are in a situation where we probably weren't planning on signing too many players, but we will have to do so now due to unforeseen circumstances. So it's going to be a very interesting window to see what Liverpool do. I'm just going to go through some of the comments before I move on to the next sort of rumor that I have written down. Firstly, big up to Oz and Kabak. He's just become our first member, so he is regarded as an FTP champ. That's what I like to call my members. So thank you to Oz and Kabak for joining the membership. Appreciate your support as always. And as I've mentioned in my previous shows, with every new member that joins the channel, I will be donating £1 to charity per member. So just another sort of thing for you to know it in terms of where the money goes. Because I feel like I'm very fortunate to be in a situation where I can offer memberships as part of my YouTube channel. So for me, it's only right to give back and help others in need. So I think that would be the right way for me to do that going forward. So thanks to Oz and Kabak for being the first member of our channel. Kieran Fletcher, big up Kieran, says fair play to Chelsea. They played well tonight and are deserved finalists. Brilliant goals from João Pedro. Will be interesting to see how game time will be shared across Pedro, Delap, and Jackson. That is the big question. And the funny thing about your comment is that I don't think they'll stop there. I think they still want to sign another striker, which it bewilders me because it's not like they play with two strikers and you're playing a 4-4-2. That way it does make sense to have four strikers, but you pretty much play um as 4-2-3-1, maybe a 4-3-1 at times. So you're always going to have one talisman up top. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think out of the three, João Pedro is the one that should be a starter. And I'm not just going based on tonight's performance. I think that probably sealed it even more for me. I feel like he's the one that offers something different in comparison to the other two. I think Delap and Jackson stylistically are quite similar, where they like to play on the shoulder and they like to stretch the opponent's defense. Whereas João Pedro is a little bit different. He likes to drop deep and he likes to be a link up player as well, but at the same time has the capability of scoring fantastic goals like he has done today. You know, because he drops deep, he will normally be around the edge of the box, and he has it in his locker to produce those long shots into the goal. So for me, he gives them that different variation. It might be a thing where Jackson ends up leaving the club. He has been linked to a move away from the club, Arsenal being one of them. I'm not sure if there's any truth to that, but he could part ways. You know, if he feels like his game time is going to be limited, and he's at a stage where I feel like he's actually, improved as time has gone on at Chelsea. So he will definitely have suitors across Europe. So let's see what happens with Chelsea. But no, fair play. They did really well today. It'll be interesting to see who they face this weekend. Will it be PSG? Will it be Real Madrid? All will be revealed tomorrow after the semi-final. And Kieran's other comment is, "Rest in peace, Jota." Everyone see his face in pictures. I can't believe he's gone. I feel the same. You know, even when I'm on social media, there's either an image or photos or some sort of coverage of Jota, and I'm still in disbelief. To be honest with you, it hasn't quite sunk in for me. But yeah, it's so surreal in terms of what's happened. Um, yeah, I really feel for the family more so than anything else. You know, their parents have lost two of their kids. Josh's wife has lost her husband, who they've just been married for a couple of weeks. His three kids, so young as well, losing a father at this stage of their lives. So yeah, it's a big one to kind of unravel, and hopefully in within time they have the strength and patience to go on and you know go to sort of their normal life and that sort of stuff. But these things, I don't feel like time is a healer in these sort of situations. It is to an extent, but you're always gonna feel that void inside. And I feel like even as a football fan, we're going to feel it as well. So that's why I feel like with this season coming up, I hope the players use this to give them that extra power and extra strength to really go out and do it for Jota this season. That's the best way we can represent Liverpool. That's the best way we can represent Diogo Jota and his family as well. So I'm hoping it's not a negative effect on us. We take it as a way of coming together, becoming closer, and really going for it next season. So that would be my mentality if I was the players. So hopefully they can make that happen going forward as well. Just got a comment here from Royal Red. So big up, Royal Red. Thank you for your comment. Thank you for tuning in. Um, Kieran says Diaz is open for a move to Barcelona. I read from Fabrizio, I think it was. He is that dream move right there. He's been twerking for it alongside his dad for that move. They just don't have the financial power or the financial needs to make that deal happen, especially if they're signing Nico Williams. I don't know if that's been official. I feel like actually no, tell a lie. That's not an official news because I remember watching his video a few days ago, and he signed for another, I want to say 8 years. I might be going to, because he graffitied the year into the how long he's going to stay there, but I've forgotten what the year was now. But he's there for a very, very long time. So it could be where, this happen, this interest from Barcelona resurfaces, but Barcelona will need to up their bid or up their proposal because what they presented earlier on a few weeks ago wasn't good enough. It was around 40 odd million including add-ons. So for me, it needs to be pretty much double that. Otherwise, we've got a team like Bayern Munich who are willing to invest into the player, and they're in desperate need of signing a left-sided attacker. So they will do their best to try and attain his services. I really hope Liverpool say no to all of these bids and keep him on board. I really think we need to be smart going forward, and I think Diaz should stay for another season. I think he should be given another contract as well. I don't think he will, unfortunately. But worst case scenario, keep him for another year, and then next year we'll have to revisit this conversation again. I don't want to lose Diaz. I feel like it will weaken the squad even further. I feel like the way he played last season, playing up top, I feel like he gave us a different dimension at times, and I don't want us to lose that sort of that aspect of our game, because he brings that familiarity in terms of how we play. If we're signing another player to replace him, are they going to fit in straight away? Are they going to need time to embed themselves? Quite possibly. So it's going to be very, very crucial in terms of what next step we make going forward. Chibuke, big up yourself. Chibuke says, I don't like how our transfer is going now. And he's gone on to say, I don't like how transfer is going now. Since Jota's death, it seems we stopped everything. Arsenal is stepping up in signing. Chelsea is doing so well in signing. Liverpool is still mourning. I'll read your second comment as well before I respond to that. We saw Kwanzaa. We need a centre back, but up till now we have not forgotten. We have not gotten one. We need two strikers if Nunez leaves, but we have not gotten one. We need a winger if Diaz leaves. We need a DM. So back to your original comment. I feel like with these sort of things, there's a time and place, and I don't think Liverpool were going to do any work in the last 5 or 6 days since the tragic news of Diogo Jota passing away. I'm a content creator, and I couldn't do any shows, not because I felt the pressure of what people would think of me, all that sort of stuff. Mentally, I didn't think it was the right thing for me to do. I couldn't go live and speak to about the transfers and who's going to come in. Even today, I've taken an extra step to do a transfer show today, but it's still not 100% comfortable for me to do so, because I have to address the elephant in the room, and that is, of course, Liverpool have to do certain businesses in order to replace the likes of Jota and all that sort of stuff. And so for me, it's not a sort of a comfortable one to do today. Um, but I feel like you have to be a bit more not s I feel like you have to be a bit more sympathetic in these kind of situations. You can't just say, "Oh, Arsenal stepping up, Chelsea d" Look, life has to be stopped at some point. When you get this kind of news, work comes secondary. It's not a primary focus. Just like in our day and age, God forbid someone passes in our lives, we're going to probably mourn. We're going to take time off. We're going to try and find the strength and energy to go again. After a certain time period. And that's what Liverpool are doing right now. I don't feel like it would if Liverpool were doing transfers right now, let's say we were signing a striker right now, I wouldn't feel comfortable with that. I think that'd be quite insensitive of Liverpool to do that. So I think, we have to be respectful in this situation. You're saying, it seems that we've stopped. We have stopped, but doesn't mean that there aren't players joining the club. There probably there has been discussions with players. We just don't know of it. But at the same time, this is the time to kind of hold those kind of discussions because we can't be insensitive just because someone's passed away. You can't be like, oh, who cares? These guys are making moves. We got to sign players. We have to respect the situation. We have to respect the family of Jota, all his loved ones, and respect the situation. His funeral was on Saturday, so he's been laid to rest. And after that, you can start slowly going back to your normal life. And that's how it's been for me personally. I can only go off by what I'm currently feeling. It's taken me a few days to sort of come to terms with it, but also come to the front and be like, do you know what? Let's do some content again. Because it didn't feel like I don't feel like it's the right time for me to do any content. Like if I did transfer shows after he passed away the next day, because I normally do my shows on Fridays or Thursdays, not acceptable. So that's just my viewpoint. Take it how you will. Um, yeah, for me, it's probably not the right time. And also, Liverpool could be doing work in behind the scenes, but they're not going to publicly reveal anything, if that makes sense. Like the gay deal, I don't know, maybe that deal's the done deal now, but we're not going to announce it until the time is right. And right now, it's not the time to announce um, signing players and all that sort of stuff. So we have to let the players mourn as well. They've just returned to training today. It's not going to be easy for them to come back to Liverpool and, you know, come into the dressing room without Diogo Jota being there. You know, they're going to see things that will remind them of their friend that they've lost recently. So we have to be a bit more sensitive when it comes to these sort of situations. Kieran says, I'm never going to forget the moment I heard the Jota news for the rest of my life. 3rd July 2025 is burning into my brain. Yeah, I hear you. I just remember seeing the news thinking it was fake because the first source that I saw that came out with it was Daily Mail, and everyone knows how they are. So I couldn't believe it when I first heard the news. But this is something we won't forget. It doesn't matter, you know, how old we get. This will always, you know, remain in the back of our minds because this was something that was never foreseen. We didn't, you know, it's not like he had any health issues or anything. It was just a unfortunate, you know, car accident that unfortunately took his life away as well as his brother. So yeah, it's so sad. Honestly, feel for the family, feel for his missus, you know, his 3 kids. You know, it's a very, very tough time for them. So thoughts and prayers always to Diogo Jota and his family and friends. I just read this comment now. So Jibril says, "How can I believe this football club again when they say they will sign Rodrygo? I don't believe them. Just signed Verts to deceive us. They should sign players for us." Look, the transfer window's not finished yet. You know, we have to be a little bit patient. We can't just assume everything happens very, very quickly. These deals take a bit of time. So look, once the window closes, then I feel like we can kind of go all guns blazing and express, you know, how satisfied or unsatisfied we are. Right now, I just feel like it's a bit of a sensitive time. We can't really go at the owners right now, in my opinion. This is 1 month to the resumption of the league, and we have not signed a top striker and defender. But it could be in the works. We don't know. We really don't know. Um, and Chibuki said, Ozzy, how long are we going to stay before we get the squad ready? This is 1 month to the resumption of the league. We are 50% short. Maybe we sign next season. 50% short in terms of what? The striking department because Jota's passed away? Look, we've got other players currently that will fill that void. You know, I do expect the club to address, you know, certain parts of the squad because that was always going to be on the cards for us anyway. We've always wanted to have a striker in the team, but we have to let certain players leave as well. Darwin Nunez is a player that I'll speak about very shortly. He's expected to leave as well. You know, there's other few players that have, you know, the futures are pretty much uncertain, but unfortunately, due to Jota's passing, it might be where we have to push 1 or 2 deals back and allow and you know request one of the players to stay because we need to make up the numbers. So I feel like you know you're feeling the urgency that we've got to do something soon because the league's going to start in a month's time. A month is a long time. Honestly, it's a long time. You know, we can get deals done. I don't feel like we're in such a bad state that we're falling behind. Just because other teams are signing clubs, it doesn't mean we're falling behind. They're trying to catch up to us. Does that make sense? We're the champions. We're the one with the strongest league squad right now. They're trying to catch up to us. Man City are catching up to us. They've signed Reinders, Cherky, Ait Nouri. They're trying to catch up to us. But we've gone on and gotten Frimpong, Kirkes, and Verts. Don't underestimate the importance of these 3 signings. Verts is a signing that I didn't even think we would even try and get over the line. That was a dream signing that I didn't even mention on any of my shows because I didn't think it was realistic. I thought he was either going to go to Bayern Munich or Man City. I don't think Liverpool were in the mix. So we have to give the club credit that that was a deal that you know certainly took the whole football world by surprise, and that's a game changer. That signing right there. You know, we're not seeing anyone play right now in terms of Liverpool, so maybe you're feeling it in that way that you know we haven't done anything. Once you see, you know, how the players embed themselves in pre-season and see how we move collectively, I think your opinion might change. Maybe because we haven't seen Liverpool play for some time, it feels like we're not doing anything. But I always say it's every transfer window. Don't watch what other people are doing. Obviously, you know, you got to keep an eye because you need to see what your competitors are doing in terms of signing players and stuff. But look at our current situation. We're very blessed. We've got a good squad right now, a very, very good squad. The players that we're trying to add, they're not mediocre players. They are players that will elevate the team. That's why we're trying to go for likes of Isak and a player that you mentioned, Rodrygo. We're trying to elevate ourselves. We're not just trying to sign squad players. We're not just trying to sign a random player for Brentford and all that. We're not trying to do that. So we have to be patient as well. It's 8th of July. We've got plenty of time to sign the players that you or the areas that you've mentioned. There is plenty of time. So I think, we've got to stay calm in this situation. Kieran with the comment says Liverpool have had a better summer window than both Arsenal and Chelsea. In my opinion, I have to agree with that one as well, Kieran. There's still time for a striker and centre back. Let's respect the situation surrounding Jota. Very well said, Kieran. I completely agree with that. Uh, Chubika says we are all Liverpool fans and we mourn Jota as well. I was heartbroken, but in my opinion, is season is about to start in 1 month time. There's never time limit. We'll finish mourning Jota. That's correct, but the thing is, they've just had the funeral. We can't just forget everything. Like the funeral's done now. We are still going to be respectful of the situation because fans are still mourning. You can't make people rush that process. For some people, if you're someone that unfortunately has encountered deaths in your sort of circle or your family, then you can kind of get numb to it. So it's some people they adapt very quickly and they move on because they're so numb to, hearing about someone passing away and stuff. But for a lot of us, this is someone we don't personally know, but it's a player that we've admired, we've watched over the years, and it's hit us by by a very huge surprise that he's passed away. So for us, we're still trying to process it. Um, And I feel like you have to respect that as well. Some fans that are watching right now might not be pleased that I'm doing a transfer show today, and they are entitled to their opinion, and I can't say they're wrong, because it's taken me, a bit of courage to do a transfer show today. I didn't really want to do one, but I thought, I have to get the ball rolling again and try and provide the content. So, this is a platform for you guys to come on, express yourselves. I could have blocked all of your comments here and thought maybe you're being a bit aggressive, but I haven't because I like to us to have this open platform and have these discussions. Whether it's uncomfortable or not. The reason I do content creation is because I like having these football discussions, and sometimes when things occur, it can go away from football. It can go towards politics or real life situations like what has happened with Diego Jota. So for me, it's important that we're respectable in this sort of situation, especially within the community, respectable to each other. But also, we have to respect the people affiliated with Jota. We have to understand that it can't just be business as usual right after he's passed away. Give people time to grieve and get their heads screwed on again because the players are probably meeting each other for the first time. I know some of them went to the funeral, but it wasn't everyone. Not everyone was there in attendance, from what I know. So it's probably the first time that they're all coming to see each other. It's going to be a very weird atmosphere at the Access Center today. So you have to just respect that as well. And when it comes to negotiating other deals, you know, let the people behind the scenes do that when the time is right. And I don't feel like we can, feel like it's alarm bells that we're not doing anything. We've signed 3 players. Let's not go crazy now. We didn't sign a single player. We've got Chiesa last summer, but come on, like that was a last minute signing. But if this was last year and you're feeling this energy, I get it. But we've signed 3 players. Yes, we need to address certain situations. Like Kwanzaa's gone, I get it. Gehi is the one that's been earmarked. For all we know, that deal's done behind the scene. It's just that we haven't announced it. You know, we won't know until later on, I guess. But let's say that deal is done. Does that help in terms of how you're feeling? Maybe, but feel like if sometimes you have to just read the room and be like, you know what, maybe it's not the time to present official deals, or maybe let's be patient now and let's see what happens. So yeah, we'll see what happens going forward. Um, Kieran said, respectfully, how can signing Verts be a tactic to deceive us versus the World Cup player, and they were willing to break records with signing to? Yeah, like Vert signing. I don't know. I don't feel like people understand the magnitude of this signing. Honestly, that's going to be the biggest deal in the whole window. If we get Isak, it's rivaling it. But Verts wasn't really a target for us. That's how I'm seeing it. So for me, this was a signing that goes beyond the thoughts or your aspirations of signing players. Like when you play FIFA, when you play these video games, you're signing players because you like them, and it's like, I will never sign them. But this is the moment where it's actually become a reality. So, we've got to really show appreciation that, we've signed an elite player at his young age that's going to get better and better. We're not signing a washed up world class player. We're signing a player that is not even close to his prime yet. He's still getting there, but he's showing levels. He's still one of the best players in world football. So for me, if that's not satisfying, then I'm not sure what is, if I'm being honest with you. Because for me, that signing still feels like it's an unbelievable signing, to be fair. So, but yeah, that's just my thoughts on that. Chibuki says striker is a sensitive position. Agreed. We need to sign a striker so that he will join them in preseason and get used to our game plan. I hear that. I hear that, but because of the unfortunate, circumstance in terms of Jota passing away, maybe there wasn't a plan to sign a second striker. Does that make sense? Maybe we were waiting to sell a player like Nunez and then get his replacement straight away. We're all assuming it's Isak. It might not have been Isak. Do you get what I'm saying? Until Nunez doesn't go, we won't really know who the striker is. So, but I get your point. It is a fair point. Um, Kieran says there have been many windows where I have been fuming at FSG, but I can't. I can only take my hats off to them this time. I agree. There has been so many windows where I'm frustrated with FSG, especially last summer. Very, very frustrated with the lack of activity. But I agree. I think FSG have done business very early, first off. And I think they've signed the right profiles as well. Honestly, I feel like these signings that we've made are going to elevate our game going forward. And we're not done just because, we've had to hit the pause button due to other things that need to be handled at this stage. We have to be a bit more human right now and forget football for a second. Um, the club will go on and try and sign other players, but it will be done the right way. It will be done at the right time as well. Uh, so yeah, going forward, we will sign players. I just feel like we have to be a bit more patient right now, and not think just because we've not heard anything for a week, there's alarm bells. There shouldn't be alarm bells at this stage. Kieran says, now if we don't sign any more players, then of course I won't be happy, but there's plenty of time. Plenty of time. We've just touched July. Remember, guys, most signings that are made official or most contracts when they end on 1st of July. That's always the 1st of July is always traditionally known as the opening of the window. It's just that Liverpool went a bit early because of the Club World Cup. We end up having two transfer windows, if that makes sense. So look, we've got three players and we've just touched the first week of July, August, and we've got 3 weeks of this month and we've got 4 weeks. So that's 7 weeks. That's plenty of time, honestly. Plenty of time to get those players through the door. So I'll just say karma. We'll get there. Chibuki says that's not what I mean, Kieran. I mean they should not sign Vert. I mean they should not sign Verts and want to use Vert signing to pretend they have finished the transfer. I don't agree with that. I think signing of Verts is very, very important in terms of how we go or how we do going forward, to be honest with you. Yeah, I'm a bit surprised by that comment. I feel like Verts is a game changer. Chibuki signing Isak, let me believe by faith. Look, we gotta have some hopes and dreams, don't we? Vance was a dream, it became true. Maybe Isak is along that same line as well. So who knows? Let's see what happens going forward. Dulu Steve says, big up the man. Aussie FTP, big ups, Dulu Steve. Thank you for your comment there. Appreciate your support. He said, I'm not expecting the lads to win a quadruple next season because of our tragedy. I think we have to, yeah, the expectations have to be managed a bit more now. Rival fans will talk nonsense, but they're there to talk nonsense, aren't they? But I agree. I feel like I'm really hoping the players just give it their all, and do it for Jota. Have Jota in the back of their mind and just push themselves that extra mile to make him proud more than anything else. Because I will say this, I think our squad is a very strong unit. They've been together for a good period of time now, and they've formed some great friendships as well. And you can see the sort of the tightness of the group as well. They're very close with each other. So I'm hoping that they can come together collectively, become closer as well, and really do their best and just do it for Jota next season. I feel like that's how it should be looked at. It should be a dedication season for Jota. Not to sound dramatic, but I feel like that's how it should be viewed at going forward. In terms of expectations, I agree. Um, if we sign certain players, then you can't help but get excited. But I think, yeah, it's not a season where we're expecting to do everything in that kind of nature, because we don't know how the players are going to react. We haven't seen in action since the passing of Jota, so we don't know what their state of mind is, how they're going to be as the season goes on. There's a lot of questions that will be raised when the season starts. So for me, um, yeah, it's it's so sad in terms of what's happened with Jota, but hopefully the players are doing okay. They're in support with each other, and hopefully they can go through this difficult time together as well. And as Delulu Steve says, whatever happens on season, I'll be okay with it. I agree. If Liverpool, let's just paint a picture here, weren't successful and we didn't win any trophies, but we gave it our all. uh, Of course, I'm not gonna say I'll accept it, but I understand it because of what's happened last week. So the expectation has to be a bit more reduced, and it has to be where if we're a bit off the rail, for example, it's understandable. Um, because I feel like any club in this situation would feel that impact right away. So yeah, I really hope that the players can at least you know produce a season that will help in terms of Jota and his family come to terms, because I feel like every part of us is going to be a dedication for Jota, and rightfully, I think that is how it should be. Uh, I just want it to be where we win some silverware, and then we can have number 20 surrounding us, with a shirt or whatnot. So yeah, this season is all about Jota, and I hope the players dedicate it to him the right way. So yeah, fingers crossed we can do it in a positive light in the upcoming season. Kieran said, "Can you explain how the transfer windows have worked this summer? Because originally I thought we weren't able to take part in the early transfer window because aren't in the Club World Cup." That's what I was a bit confused with as well, because they tried to say it was two separate windows, but clubs are still signing players. So I don't think it has any sort of ramifications in terms of if you can conduct business or not. It might just been a window for the teams that were participating, that they had their own kind of window. So, for example, certain players couldn't be signed within a certain deadline. But then again, Chelsea has just signed João Pedro and he's played today. So, honestly, I'm not entirely sure. It's quite a bit of a weird scenario. I feel like they're just labeled as two windows, but it's just been a normal window. That's just how I'm viewing it. So, yeah, not entirely sure if I'm being brutally honest. I feel like they just tried to make it across that it's two windows, but no, it didn't come across that way, because how is João Pedro playing when that deal just got done last week? So yeah, doesn't make sense. It's confusing. FIFA, they make everything confusing now, so I don't feel like anything's black or white anymore, unfortunately. But yeah, it is what it is. Now back to the Diaz topic. Let's just paint the picture. Let's say that Diaz unfortunately does leave the club. Who should be signed as his direct replacement? Now, the current rumor is this fella here, Real Madrid's Rodrygo, and apparently he could be the player that comes in and make that left wing position his own. Unpopular opinion, I don't rate the player very highly, if I'm being brutally honest with you. In fact, I think he's overrated. Now, that might seem harsh because I know a lot of fans do rate Rodrygo, but if he's as good as what people suggest, I think personally he needs to leave Real Madrid. I'm not just saying that because I want him to join Liverpool. I'm saying he needs to leave Real Madrid in order to number one, play more regular games and then fulfill his potential because I don't feel like he's fulfilled his potential there. He's been there for a few years now. Some people rate him. I feel like I've not seen enough to say that he's a world class talent. I don't think he's in that bracket. He's a decent player, but if you look at his numbers, 6 goals and 5 assists last season, not very high. Let's be honest. Um, so for me, he wouldn't be my first choice. But then you have to assess the options out there. Who or what type of players are available in order to replace Luis Diaz because it can't be anyone, in my opinion. It has to be someone of adequate quality who will come in and replace his impact in the team, i.e., play left wing, play up top, be that sort of option for us going forward. So, Luis Diaz just made a point I was about to mention as well. He also inserted Mo Salah in the podcast. I saw that clip earlier on today. Someone brought that to life. Um, and that didn't sit well with me. I already had this sort of unpopular opinion about Rodrygo, which is kind of funny a little bit because I did a show a few weeks ago and I was trying to forecast what Liverpool should do going forward. And I put Rodrygo as our signing or a signing that I think we should make, but that was on the basis that he's available. Uh, my choice is not Rodrygo. But I thought because of all the options out there, I think he would have been not easy attainable, but the player wants to leave. And I think that kind of price range of 70 million would be the one that gets him over to Liverpool. But that's a very valid point in terms of that it just shows his characteristic. And I don't really like people that talk rubbish behind the scenes and doing it on a podcast like that as well, where you're still an active professional and you're talking like that. It doesn't sit well for me. So, you know, people will just go off based on ability, but as a Liverpool fan, we've had managers over the years that have gone to sign on players based on personality. From the days of, I'd say Rafa Benitez, he would do thorough research about the person's characteristics before they were signed. It wouldn't just be about the ability; it would be how they are on and off the field. How are they amongst the squad? What do they bring to the table? And that goes on to I want to say Brendan Rodgers because I don't feel like he brought that to the table. But Klopp was the same thing as well, and I think Arne Slot will probably be in that same kind of motion where they have to be a good fit. You don't want a rotten egg in your squad, so he could be that character, unfortunately. So I'm not sort of head over heels about this move. If he comes, don't get me wrong, he will get my support. But if it was down to my opinion, my choice, I don't think he would be the guy that I'd go for. I don't feel like he's the one that will be the game changer. He's not going to be one that hits the ground running and scores an unbelievable amount of goals. I still feel like there's question marks about his ability. I don't think he's as good as what people make it seem. Uh, Good talent. I just don't think he's in that elite talent group of players, in my opinion. So, I don't think a lot of fans will agree with that, but that's just my opinion on him. Uh, Kieran says, I think he is overrated by people who don't watch him. I don't see him as well, but I still rate him. He isn't playing in his favorite position for Madrid. That's a good point as well. I say he's overrated based on what I've seen. I wouldn't say I watch Real Madrid every week, but I've watched Real Madrid enough over the years to say that he's not a player that moves me. Like, he's a good player, talented player, but maybe my expectations are a bit high at Liverpool, but I want someone to come in and have an instant impact because he's going to replace Luis Diaz. For me, that's very, very important. I hear the point in terms of he's not playing his favorite position, but let's be honest, if he came to Liverpool, he would start at the left wing or he would play predominantly left wing, but he would need to cover right wing at times as well for Salah because we don't have anyone else that can do that. So if that's a big issue for him, that he has to play right wing on occasions, then for me, he's not the right signing for us. You can't have a player that fixated about playing one position. We've had players in the past that have said that and they've not delivered. So for me, if that is his mentality that he just wants to play one position and it's nothing but that, he doesn't have the right mentality for me. So for me, not an option. Um, Chris said Rodrygo can't lace Salah's boots. How can he possibly disrespect our Egyptian king? Facts. Nothing wrong with it there. Complete facts there. So that's my opinion on Rodrygo. Let's talk about potential targets because there has been a few names rumbling in the last few days that could be regarded as Luis Diaz's potential replacement in the squad. So I'm gonna go through some of the names and feel free to drop a comment and let me know what you guys think as well. Anthony Gordon. Now, this doesn't stop. This rumor will always circulate. It doesn't help that he goes on holiday with Curtis Jones every year. Uh, but some fans are really, really desperate for this guy to join the club. I don't know where it is. Honestly, he's a decent player. I'm not going to just be disrespectful and say he's rubbish. He's not rubbish. He's not. He's far from being rubbish. He's a decent player, good player at best. He's not in the same league as Luis Diaz. The replacement that comes in has to be in the same league or kind of close enough. I don't think Gordon's close enough to be a direct replacement for Luis Diaz. So for me, I'm very surprised by the fascination of Anthony Gordon being the next one that comes in, or the player that replaces Diaz in the end. I don't know what the fascination. Yes, I get it. He's a boyhood red. He's a scouser. That's not enough. Shout out to Ozan Kabak. He mentioned uh, a very interesting question that he put on the table for me. Now I'll be doing a show by it in terms of he gave me a list of like worst players that we had over the years, and it brought some kind of flashbacks in terms of like the caliber of players that we used to have in our team. Like the example that I give when it comes to Gordon and Diaz is when we had Alonso, and then when we sold Alonso, we were trying to get Gareth Barry. For me, Gareth Barry, a good player, but not in the same wavelength as Gordon. So that's the example I could give. That's the parameters for me. I don't think he's on that level at all. Um, and so back to Gordon Kabak's point that he made. So he listed a few players, and one of the players that he listed me for me to. So the question was, out of these six players, come up with a front line of Barini, Balotelli, Lambert, Voronin, Jovanovic, and Ings. And then the whole Lambert one brought some sort of realization to me that we signed him because he was a boyhood red. He wasn't a great player. He was decent at Southampton, don't get me wrong, but he wasn't great. And I feel like we signed him because we thought, oh, we need a backup striker for Balotelli. But at that time, he was towards the latter stage of his career. He wasn't a good player at the time. So we signed him on the basis that he's a boyhood red. So we should get him on board. I don't want it to be where we make the same mistake here with Gordon. Just because he's a boyhood red and he's a scouser doesn't mean he deserves to automatically be a Liverpool signing. I have high expectations for my club. I don't want us to just sign anyone for the sake of it. So no, for me, um, Gordon's not really an option for me. And plus, let's be honest, he's not going to be cheap. Newcastle are going to ask for at least 70, 80. Whatever money we get for Diaz, they want the same amount. It's going to be the same amount. It's not going to be anything less. They might even be cheeky and say, give us more because he's a scouser and he's a boy's red and you've been chasing him for the last couple of days. So for me, we have to be a bit more smart. I'm hoping that the data analytics will tell Michael Edwards and Cole that he's not the guy for us. But fans are really on this train, this Gordon train. I wasn't on it last year, and I'm not on it this year. But feel free to let me know what you guys think. This is the player that I'm all on board with. Is Bradley Barcola. Whether it's realistic or not, I don't think it is. Unfortunately, I think he's having issues with a contract extension, but I think that will get resolved at some point. He's a prize asset at PSG. At some parts of last season, he wasn't even in the front line, but whenever he was or whenever he played, he was phenomenal. His GA I think was around 38. Phenomenal stats. He's a young player, still has so much to grow. This would be my dream signing. Now, if we sign him, I'm all on board. Honestly, this is the guy that I would love for us to sign. So whether it's realistic or not, I'm not too sure. That's why when I did my transfer show a few weeks ago to try and forecast players coming in, players going out, I said he was my dream signing, but I just didn't think it was realistic because I don't think he's available, if I'm being brutally honest. Um, Malik Fofana, so a very talented young player, but for me, if he came in to replace Diaz, the only way that would sit well with me is if we signed Isak and another good established striker as his backup, because that would show me that he would be fifth or sixth choice and he wouldn't be heavily relied upon within the squad. If we don't sign an elite striker like Isak and he's coming to be a versatile player, that's a concern. We've dropped down in quality, in my opinion. He's very talented, don't get me wrong, but he's not the finished article. So for me, if we're replacing Diaz, it has to be someone that's ready made and literally do or pretty much have the impact that Diaz has had for us last season. So good young option, but I don't know if it's the right option. It would depend on what other businesses we do in the summer window. This is a player that's going to get mixed opinions, but I would be on board with Rafael Leao. I feel like he would be the right type of signing. He would literally replace Diaz like for like, where he's a left winger. On his heyday, the most explosive winger in world football, I think. Unplayable at times, but those heydays don't come often, unfortunately. He is quite inconsistent. Um, he'd cost around 60 million. I know AC Milan have a new coach in Allegri now, so there's already talks that Allegri is really trying to make him the main guy now. So he's having discussions with him on the training camp, one-on-one chats and all that sort of stuff. So seems to be that he has higher hopes for Rafael Leao. So maybe he's out of bounds and he'll probably remain at the Italian side. But in terms of ability wise, I think he would be someone that comes in and hits the ground running. That's the kind of level I want at the club. But unfortunately, I don't know if it's a realistic one. And a bit of a wild card sort of suggestion is Keane Yildiz. Now, a player that's looked very impressive in the Club World Cup, but even before that, I've seen him quite a few times, seen him play for Turkey as well. Very promising player, very talented player, great passing range for an attacker, has a sort of a great sort of awareness and threading those needle on the eye type through balls. I feel like he'd be fantastic for us, but he's definitely a prized asset at Juventus, and he's probably the future and the current star player right now. So they wouldn't part ways with him unless we offer a ridiculous amount of money. Um, but definitely want to watch out for. I do feel like he's a very talented player. Um, so yeah, so you just never know. But these are just a few of the options that I came across, and I don't know if like the players that mentioned that I've liked, I don't think they're available. So Rodrygo, I don't rate. Gordon, I don't think is the right quality. Then you've got Barcola, who for me would be the dream signing, but I don't think it's realistic. Fofana would be a good young signing for us, but I need two other established players in the squad to complete that attack line for me to accept that move. Rafael Leao, I think will probably end up staying because they've got a new coach, and I feel like he's going to be made the main man there, or given that confidence that you're the star of the show now. And killing this, I don't think Juventus will sell. So good players there. Maybe I should actually not mention another name, Nico Williams, but unfortunately, I just realized that he signed a new contract with Bilbao, so he's not even going to Barcelona. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But these are the players, or these are the names that we've heard very recently. So let's see. But we'll get further clarification in terms of what happens with Diaz, and then we can kind of probably do a dedicated show and then talk about potential targets because we'll know where we stand, we know what the picture is, and then we can kind of take it from there. So Yeah, let's see what happens going forward. Before I touch on the next rumor, I will quickly read out some of the comments here. Uh, so Kieran says, "Yeah, I agree. He's overrated by the masses. This is in regards to Rodrigo, but not by players who actually watch him because we know he isn't world class. A lot of people who don't watch him probably would have him over Kvara. Yeah, I wouldn't. Kvaratskhelia all day long over Rodrigo. I really wish that we had signed Kvaratskhelia, you know. That was the one that I feel like we should have just jumped the gun and be like, you know what? He was earmarked as a summer target. Let's just get him now, like we did with Gakpo and Diaz all those years ago. Yeah, I feel like we missed the guy. It's only 70 million, which it's a big fee. Yes, I get it, but not that. It's not that much of a crazy fee. Newcastle want the same amount for Gordon. They're not in the same league, so yeah, it's a shame. Honestly, it's a shame. Delulu Steve says Aussie thoughts on other dark horses out there like Matteo Retigui or even Conchalo Ramos. Retigui is an interesting one. I don't want to sound stereotypical, but Italian strikers and the Premier League hasn't bode well since the days of Zola and Vialli, those type of or Ravanelli. I'm really showing my age now, so uh, it hasn't really worked, unfortunately. So I feel like that sort of adaptation to the Premier League from an Italian striker, it hasn't done well over the years. So that would put me off. So I don't know if it will adapt to the intensity of the league. Gonçalo Ramos, in terms of the profile, he wouldn't be a bad signing because he's 23. He's had a decent career up to now. Gunman at Benfica and has scored his fair share of goals at PSG. For me, Gonçalo Ramos would be a good sort of backup signing, a player off the bench rather than the main number nine. So if we sign Isak and Gonçalo Ramos, I'm happy with that. But for me, it can't be Ramos as the guy. I don't think he has the pedigree to be the main man at Liverpool. But that's just my opinion on the player. Um, Kieran said he's a decent player, better than Martinelli and Madueke, in my opinion. But Diaz and Gakpo start over him. For me, yeah, I agree. Funny thing about Anthony Gordon, he wasn't even the best winger at Newcastle last season. It has to be what's his name? I forgot. The name is gone now, and I'm gonna have to quickly search up for his name. How could that name just go pop out of my head? Honestly, the name is literally Jacob Murphy. How can I forget? Jacob Murphy was the best winger at Newcastle last season. He really was. And even towards the latter stage of the season, Harvey Barnes ends up stepping up. So he was probably fair choice, fair best winger at the club. And we want to go and sign him for 78 million. Makes no sense, honestly. Deleuze says Bruini all my days. Yeah. Ozan Kabak definitely brought back some names that I tried to, leave in the back of my mind. Yeah, some dark days, honestly. Kieran says Rotigu has had one good season, so not for me, and definite no to Ramos. Fair enough. I agree. Uh, Bad memories. Yeah, it was. Kieran says would love Sam Barcola. Yeah, we're on the same wavelength there. Fantastic player, honestly. It would be a great signing. Oh, some more names on the past. Deleuze said Lazar Markovic. Honestly, right, with Benfica, I don't want to do any business with Benfica going forward. They bumped us for Markovic. We ended up paying 50 million for him, and they also bumped us with Darwin Nunez. So I've already got a distasteful opinion of Benfica because they really know how to milk it and get the most out of any transfer dealings with Liverpool. So yeah, he was. People were likening him to Messi. I don't know what it was. Maybe because he was short, had a similar hairstyle and had low sense of gravity. That doesn't make you Messi. So I don't know what happened there. Honestly, Saidi, I remember him. Good player. To be fair, he had some decent skills on him. He just wasn't Premier League level. In the Dutch league is fine, but Premier League, yeah, it's a different ballgame. It just wasn't quite up to standard, unfortunately. Um, Kieran says, don't get me wrong, Liao would be an exciting signing, but his inconsistent performance scared me to death. Yeah, he's not the most consistent. I do agree with that. But I feel like if we've got a coach like Arne Slot who really believes in him, I feel like it could be the turning point for him. I really do. I feel like if you have a coach that has full belief in you, unless it also does, like he really rates the player, then I feel like it could definitely change his game. So that's why I feel like, Slot could have an impact on him if he really values the player in that way. Kieran says, I watched a lot of Yildiz this season. I would definitely take Yildiz. Very young and is so dangerous every time he gets the ball. If you're playing Juve, he would worry me. Great player. You know what? I've seen him a few times, but he's one of those players where when he gets the ball, it's not just him just doing dribbles or sideways passes. He's got a real purpose. He's driving with the ball. He's forward thinking. He's trying to make things happen. And his final through ball, it's perfectly weighted at times. So I feel like he's got that now. So he's got that number 10 kind of trait about him where he knows when to pull the trigger into that final pass. He's got a great shot and he's got a spectacular goal for Juventus in the Club World Cup. So for me, he's a real talent. He's a very, very interesting player. A player that I feel like Liverpool probably should look towards if we're trying to sign that type of profile. He would be above Malik Fofana because I feel like Malik Fofana has just broken through the ranks of Leon and he's having a good season there. He didn't come through the ranks, but in terms of he's just joined Leon the last year or two. So for me, it's like he hasn't really had a spectacular season for me to be like, this is the guy for us. Canellis has been doing it quite more consistently in the last couple of years. So I do feel like he has maybe the highest ceiling, if I'm being brutally honest. So let's see what happens with Yildiz. Kieran said Turkey are lucky to have Yildiz and Goulet, very talented player as well. Deluded Steve says, don't think as a club we've ever had a successful Italian player, right? No, I, I don't think we have. The names that come to my head, we signed the young goalkeeper, I think it was Pandielli, I think his name was. He never got any game time, so that's probably relevant. Dosena came as a wing back. Well, he came as a left back, but he was traditionally a wing back, so he never settled really well. His probably biggest point was scoring against United and Real Madrid. Aquilani, you've mentioned him there. Aquilani was a flop. He was a flop because we signed him when he was injured. So when he came to the club, it took him about a year to get to full fitness. And once he got to that level, he just couldn't handle the physicality and intensity of the Premier League. So he was just a poor signing altogether. Talented player if you watch him in a Roma shirt, but yeah, poor poor replacement for Xabi Alonso at the time, honestly. Not a great signing there. Um, I think I have to agree with you, still, Lucy. I can't think of any other Italian player that was successful. Balotelli wasn't a success. Like when we signed him, I thought we got excited because it was a big name striker to replace Suarez. And I think Lambert was a bit underwhelming. So I thought, oh, okay, fine. We got two strikers there. But no, he wasn't the guy. He really wasn't. So um Delusive. I mean, Chiesa won the Premier with us, but barely played. No, but you've hit the nail on the head. He barely played. So on merit, he got it because he made certain cameos. But no, he's not had the impact for us. On paper, he's a fantastic player. He has been over the last few years, but no, he's not. He's not. He wasn't the defining player for us last season. He barely played. So no. Um, this is mine. Is how can I figure out Balotelli? Yeah. That was a weird signing as well. Um, I feel I remember Brendan Rodgers having made some comments about him in the preseason, and it wasn't like great comments, but it wasn't bad comments either. And I just didn't feel like he was his profile striker, and then we end up signing. It was really bizarre. That was the year we were trying to sign Alexis Sanchez as Suarez's replacement. I didn't do content at the time, but that was actually the guy that I wanted to replace Suarez. So I could have predicted a good sort of player or assessed a good replacement for Suarez, but we didn't really go for that kind of profile in the end. We ended up signing two traditional orthodox number nines that weren't runners, that didn't play like Suarez, and definitely just slowed us down and just it wasn't a good dynamic or good balance into our team. So yeah, it wasn't a very smart signings for both of us, I guess. Yeah, very very poor from Liverpool at that stage. Artemelo is Italian. No, he's Brazilian, but He's played most of his career at uh, the Italian league. Kieran says Balotelli flopped badly, like really badly. Yeah, he did. This could have been the club for him, but I feel like the support would have been unconditional for him, and he wouldn't have got that support anywhere else. But his mentality wasn't there. Unfortunately, that has been his downfall of his whole career because he's got the talent. He broke into that Inter Milan team when he was like 17, and he had the likes of Adriano, Zlatan Ibrahimovic in the team, but he still got in. I think Obafemi Martins was still there as well, so he still played alongside those players, but he never really hit the ground running there, unfortunately. So his best work came with Mancini because I think Mancini, showed his human side when he coached him. He was a bit of a power figure for Balotelli, but everywhere else, it wasn't the same impact. So yeah, I thought he was going to do all right at the club, but yeah, how wrong was I? Uh, Kieran says, by the way, on your disc, he's the closest thing that we had since Prime Chiesa. That's a good comparison there. Stylistically, I get what you mean. Very similar to Chiesa, I guess, but and you will say, if only we got Chiesa before injuries. I know. I still feel like I have that little hope that if he does stay, he'll be able to showcase some of that talent. But I don't know. I don't know. But in terms of these sort of potential signings, there's been another sort of breaking news today, and that is Darwin Nunez. Now, slightly mixed reports, but it's still kind of on the same wavelength. So according to the Mazzio, he said Liverpool have rejected a bid of 50 million euros. I'm gonna get the accurate amount. I feel like that's around 40 million um in pounds. So it's 43 million in pounds, which makes sense. Uh, but they didn't report that the sort of the add-on or the other clauses within the deal. So it was 43 plus 4 million in add-ons. So in total, it was a 47 million deal. Um, Now the big question from a Liverpool point of view is what do we do in this situation? Because Napoli are expected to come in with another bid. They're very, very strongly interested in signing Darwin Nunez, but due to Diogo Jota's passing last week, do Liverpool change their stance and keep the Uruguayan for one more year, or have we come to a stage where it's best for all parties affiliated for Darwin Nunez to leave the club and join Napoli or join another team in a different league? I would go with the latter. I think it's come at a point where Nunez needs to move on now, and I think it will benefit his own career because it's a World Cup year as well. So he'd want to be playing regular football in order to be the main man for Uruguay. And I feel like him playing in a different league like a Serie A, for example, where it's a bit more slower pace in comparison to the Premier League, I feel like he would adjust really well to that way of playing. He's already quite a chaotic player, but when he's in the Premier League, he doesn't have the time and space to be chaotic, if that makes sense. He walks onto the pitch and it's already chaos because it's been paid at a crazy speed. But if he joins a league like La Liga or Serie A, where he steps on the pitch and it's more technical and it's played at a slower pace, I think it gives him more time to be more measured and more composed in front of goal. That's why I feel like in the Premier League he was so erratic at times, and I feel like that's been one of his downfalls. Is finishing. He's not been a prolific striker for us. Therefore, I think he should move on this summer. And of course, there were a lot of rumors circulating, bids from Saudi Arabia. We had interest from La Liga and Serie A, but it looks like Napoli are the team that are in sort of a strong position to sign the player. Um, I think this still will happen at some point. Uh, in terms of the fee, I'm hoping above 50 million. I think minimum 50 is what we need to accept, plus any add-ons. So a base price of 50 million plus add-ons. So 55, 60 million. That's what I would want for Darwin Nunez. Because, we might not rate him as a fan base, or some section actually. I wouldn't say all of us don't rate him, but the argument is still that look, Darwin Nunez was part of a Premier League winning season. He contributed. He did, chip in with the goals. He had an impact in the squad. So he's not just a washed up striker. He's a player that is still very much a player of high quality. So that would be our sort of pitch to sell Nunez because he does still have ability. I just don't think he's the right fit for Liverpool and the Premier League. So therefore, I think it's best for him to leave the club and flourish somewhere else where he'll be beloved by the Napoli fans. That would be a great fit, with his energy and aggression and the way he plays. The Napoli fans will love that. So I mean, from a personal point of view, it makes sense for him to join the club. He remains in Europe. He plays at a respectable league in Serie A. He's playing for the Italian champions in Napoli as well. So he's moving from one champion to another champion. So I think it would make good sense for him to join the club. The only stumbling block is the transfer fee, but we all know Napoli have money. They got that big paycheck from the Kvaratskhelia deal, so they can definitely increase that bid, which I expect to happen very, very soon. So yeah, let's see what happens. I'm sure we'll get some sort of developments in the next week, in my opinion. Um, just gonna go through a couple more comments here. Curious if Napoli come back in with a 55 million bid, I would accept. I agree, 55 million would be a sufficient amount. Um, when is Nunez going to play for Napoli though with them having Lukaku? Lukaku had a great season. They could play with two strikers. I know Conte has done that with his previous teams in the past. So maybe play two strikers up top. Or they'll be in rotation, which I don't think would be a crazy scenario, but uh, that'd be a Napoli headache more than anything else. I just want us to get that deal done for Liverpool's point of view. Maybe on the left, they still haven't replaced Cavara. He could play on the left. It's not a crazy shout. I just don't think he does his best work there. But in Syria, maybe it suits them to play a player like that, where he's not an orthodox left winger, but he causes havoc on that side of the pitch. So you never know. I think they could just form a strike force between the two, Lukaku and Nunez. So yeah, we'll see. But I do feel like that's a player that they've been very, very interested in, and I think they're going to try and do everything they can to acquire his services. So hopefully that can be done in due course. We've got one more rumor to talk about, but before we move on, I kind of just wanted to paint the picture a little bit in terms of our current squad due to the unforeseen, of course, events that happened last week with Diogo Jota passing away. I felt like Liverpool might need to reevaluate the squad once again. There were players that we all expected to leave, but maybe we should hold fire on those players leaving or that decision to leave, and maybe this could be revisited next year because I feel like there's no point of us just selling players for the sake of it. We need to make sure that we have adequate quality in order to um, challenge for major honors next season. So let me bring up the lineup for you guys, and then I can talk it through in a bit more detail. So let me bring it for you guys. So hopefully you can see the screen now. So this is the current squad, and I'll go through the names one by one. So in terms of our goalkeepers, it's Alison Becker and Mamadashvili. We've signed another third choice keeper. I've forgotten his name now, but we have three keepers in our squad now. We've got Frimpong and Bradley as your right back, Turkes and Robertson as your left back. Simicast probably expected to leave at some point. Konate and Joe Gomez for that right side centre back role. and you've got Virgil van Dijk. We don't have a like for like backup for him, but that is expected to be Mark Gay. But I haven't added it because it's not official yet. But that is, earmarked as the next move. Then we have McAllister and Gravenberch forming a double pivot. Then you've got Jones, Endo, and you've got Bajtic and McConnell. I still feel like we need one more player to add to that mix and strengthen that department even further. But I'm not sure it's a high priority in this window. Now, this is the big discussion point for me. Right now, on paper, Florian Wirtz is our number 10, with Szoboszlai being his backup on paper. Then you got Mohamed Salah and Elliot being the backup player, and he's the one that's supposed to be leaving the club. Gakpo on the left, and I've got Chiesa as his backup, because I've promoted Diaz as our striker. So on paper, I guess he is replacing Jota in the team, and you got Darwin Nunez. So out of those six players, Darwin Nunez looks to be pretty much a shoo-in to leave this window. Diaz is another one. Elliot is another one, and so is Chiesa. Now, out of those four players, I don't think we can sell all of them in this window. I think we need to keep at least two. I think it might be worth keeping Chiesa for another season, but it just depends on Arne Slot's sort of stance about Chiesa, because if he's like, I can't trust this guy, like whenever he plays, he's not doing the business for me, or he's not a great trainer and he's not on board, then he will have to go, isn't it? Elliot is the one I'd want us to want us to keep, sorry. And I'd want him to stay. He can be a backup for Salah, but can also play that number 10 role. And for me, let's say Chiesa leaves, for example, right? What I would do in a situation, I would maybe push Szoboszlai as a backup left winger for Gakpo, because he can play in that role. He's played there for Red Bull Leipzig. Jones is more advanced, ends up being a backup for Wirtz. And then you've got Salah being the main man, and then you've got Elliot as his backup. And then we sign another midfielder to add quality or depth to our double pivot. So just for a name like Edison from Atalanta, for example. So then you have Gravenberch, McAllister, and Edison and Endo as your two backup players. And then up top, you've got Diaz or Darwin Nunez. But the thing is, if Diaz leaves and Darwin Nunez leaves, we need to sign two strikers. So it'll be the guy that we see as the main man, but then we also need to sign someone else that will not be backup, but will have to challenge for that role. And that's a very tough project to sell, where everyone knows that Liverpool have one less attacker in the team due to Jota passing. So Liverpool will be in the market for two strikers. It was all our eggs were in one basket for Isak, but now we're gonna have to sign two. So I feel like it would be crazy for us to sell Elliot, Chiesa, Darwin Nunez, and Diaz. Out of the four, just a question for the chat, or if you're watching this on replay, feel free to drop a comment as well. Who would you sell in that sort of scenario when it comes to those four players? Elliot, Darwin Nunez, Luis Diaz, and Chiesa. I feel like you need to keep two. So in this scenario, which two would you keep and which two would you sell? For me, I wouldn't want to. Nunez, definitely. And that's not me being disrespectful. It could be Chiesa. But I feel like with the Luis Diaz situation, it just seems like he wants to go. So if a player is not interested anymore, then maybe it's Diaz and Darwin Nunez, because they're the ones that's going to bring in the money as well. And then we sign an Isak, because the money would have been generated to sign a player of that caliber. And then we push the boat a little bit and sign another striker. A player that's available that could fit that role in terms of being the backup striker is Mikudatse, who plays for Lyon. Very, very good striker, and he should be available for a cut price as well. So I feel like we need to kind of target that type of profile um, of a player, but at the same time, I do want us to get a man of real quality, real gunman, a real established striker in our team. It could just be where, we don't get Isak, we sign someone else like a Osimhen for 60 million, and then use the funds to sign another backup striker. So we haven't, wasted too much money. If finance is the issue right there. So it's going to be interesting in terms of what we do. But I do feel like we can't sell all four. I think that'd be crazy for us to do. Um, if we sell four, I think we only bring in two. We won't sell. We won't replace like for like in that scenario, and that would basically mean that we will be overstretched because other attackers or other players in the squad will need to chip in or be utilized more rigorously than expected or than planned. Um, but just as some food for thought there in terms of the squad, I feel like we should probably keep Elliot, if I'm being honest with you. And depending on Diaz's stance, if he's actually willing to stay, I'd keep him and then keep Chiesa and then maybe just sign that striker as well. But feel free to drop a comment and let me know what you guys think. Um, just gonna read some comments before we go into the last rumor, and that is Kieran. Kieran says, "Sorry, Ozzy, I need to go get some sleep. I wish I could watch the rest of the stream. Really enjoyed the stream tonight. Thanks for always keeping it real. Good night. Big up yourself, Kieran. Thank you for your kind words as always. I know I appreciate it. It is quite late, but feel free to watch the replay whenever you have some time. Um, Deluded Steve says, Ozzy, does McConnell, Trey, Rio, Kumas all downs play a part in next season? Are any of them good enough? Great question there, Steve. McConnell, I rate, he's a player I really like. I would keep him on board. Probably an unpopular opinion. I rate him above Bajcetic, and I know some fans are not going to like that. But I've seen more of McConnell to suggest that I feel like he will definitely have some involvement in the squad. I think a loan move would make more sense for McConnell because I feel like he needs to play proper sort of men's football where he needs to get adapted to the physicality of English football. Um, but I wouldn't mind him being like sixth choice within our squad. Trey, I think a loan move would benefit Trey. I know he's just signed a long-term contract with the club, so that clearly means that we think very highly of him. I think a loan move would be great for his development. So if not, I think he's an adequate player to cover for that position, but I need a bit more established players in the squad. And Rio, me personally, I think this season should be his season where he focuses on playing for the under 23s. He just started playing for them in the last 2, 3 months of the season and did really well. But I feel like that's the level where he should play because he'll get to play against more experienced players. And then, you know, his development will evolve going forward. I feel like if we throw him in the first team, it's too much pressure on the kid. Don't get me wrong, I do feel like we will play him in the Carabao Cup and maybe the early stages of the FA Cup, but that's about it. Kind of similar to how he was treated last season, where he made a start in the FA Cup. This time I might get one or two more. So uh, I don't want to put too much pressure on the young player. Maybe next season onwards, he becomes a more of a first team option going forward, but definitely a player that is highly regarded. Kumas, I think he might end up going out on another loan move next season. Dan's very talented player. I don't know if he's ready to be a second choice striker, if I'm being honest. And also he's been suffering a lot of injuries in the last 18 months as well. So for me, it's a bit of a concern going forward. But a loan move would make more sense for him as well. I think a loan move to maybe League One. I think Championship if you can get a deal because he was at Sunderland, so there will be teams interested in signing the player on loan. So I think a Championship club would really help with his development. Um, But out of the names, McConnell's the one that I feel like could have an involvement in the squad. Trey, I would like him to go on loan. Rio, not quite there. I think we need to be very careful with how we, push him towards the first team. He needs to develop in his own way and not feel rushed in any form at all. Um, Steve says Lucy is as good as gone. Ozzy. Yeah, you're right. Maybe I'm being a bit hopeful in that scenario. Um, Colombian media says his mind is made up to leave and feels like the club has respected him by not increasing his wages, according to Colombian journalist uh, Pipsia. Yeah, you're not wrong. Um, I was literally going to bring out this is what I saw earlier on as well. Uh, and the stance is either you renew my contract or let me leave because I have an offer from Bayern and Barcelona. He wants to stay. He wants to improve his contract conditions, but if not, he's going to leave. Ask to leave this week. So, no, you're spot on, Steve. That is definitely the current stance with regards to Diaz, and it's such a shame because I do feel like he's a valuable member of the squad. But if he has to go, so be it. So that's why I said Diaz and Nunez are the ones expected to leave, in my opinion. But I'd like to keep Chiesa and Elliott for one more season, and then if they want to move on else after that, they can do. In terms of priority, I'd definitely keep Elliott. I wouldn't let Elliott go. If Chiesa wants to leave because he doesn't feel like he's going to be involved, then so be it. But then it's a lot of work for us to do in terms of finding the right players and finding the right balance in that attack line. I don't want it to be where we have to reduce the quality going forward. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. But yeah, I'm sure we'll get some further developments in the coming days. And before we close the show, final rumor, and no surprise because I feel like we get the same tweet or the same rumor every single day, and that is regarding Konate. And the news is that he is expected to play out the remainder of his contract at Liverpool and then complete his move to Real Madrid next summer on a free transfer, which needs to be pointed out very clearly. Thoughts on that? I think anyone's guess is, you know, as good as their own because we don't know what's happening here. He's very quiet. He has said that the rumors are fake when this sort of news broke 2, 3 weeks ago. I don't know, honestly. I'm not getting. I'm more hopeful that he signs a new contract, but I'm not getting that positive or that indefinite vibe that he's definitely going to stay. I'm not getting that vibe, unfortunately. I really hope I'm wrong in this scenario here, but I don't know. It's 50-50 right now in regards to Ibu. I feel like the Real Madrid project might be a very appealing prospect for him because he ends up joining, the French contingents there in terms of Mbappe, Tchouaméni, Camavinga, all those players are already at the club. Um, so yeah, let's see. If he hasn't signed the contract by the end of the window, he'll probably say no. We'll talk at some point this season. In my eyes, he's gone. That's how I would view it. If he doesn't sign a new contract by the end of the window, forget it. He's gone. So Liverpool have a big decision to make. If they have any inkling that he doesn't want to sign a new contract, maybe we part ways with him now. It doesn't really matter where he goes to, as long as we get the cash for him. That's the more important thing. And I feel like we can easily get 40 million for him, and that money can be used to reinvest into the squad. Mark Gay looks like he's coming in. I don't think Mark Gay's on the same wavelength as Konate, but um, it would be a short-term fix. But we'd have to sign an adequate replacement for Konate either this window, which would be a big task if I'm being honest. But will most likely be next summer. So I really hope he stays. I really do, but I don't know. I don't feel very confident, and yeah, I'm just going with my gut instinct right now. Hopefully, maybe we'll get some news soon and we get a different kind of viewpoint. At this stage, I don't get that vibe right now. So let's see what happens with Ibu Konate. I'm not gonna be sort of like emotional about it because I know some fans are. have already made predetermined thoughts about him, saying, "Oh, he's all about the money." Like, I don't know the context. He doesn't seem like he's, a money hungry sort of individual. Um, but he's probably a person of principle where he feels like, he is of value to a certain standard. So if someone like Saliba, who for me is on par with Konate, is earning that like 200K or whatever the amount is, he wants that to be reflected in terms of his um, worth and valuation to the team as well. So he's not wrong if that is the scenario. I just hope Liverpool do the right thing because there aren't many dominant centre backs in world football. I think he's probably one of the best in Europe. I really do, and I'm not just being biased here. There aren't, real imposing centre backs that will come in and just like change the team. Like, think about who would you replace Konate with? A player that might have good sort of adequate quality would be Bastoni, but there will be question marks about Bastoni because he predominantly plays in a back three. Can he adapt to a back four? He should do, but we don't know. And also, if he does join Liverpool, for example, Van Dijk will need to be a right-sided centre back because Bastoni is left-footed. So you already changed the dynamics of the team that doesn't need to be changed at this stage. So there aren't many players out there, if I'm being honest with you. It's club need to be very smart here. I think they should give whatever. I'm not saying give him a blank checkbook or anything to that nature, but I think he deserves to get an increased salary, whether it's double the wages. That's between the club and the player. But I definitely deserves at least double the salary if I'm being because earning 75K. I think he should be earning close to 200. I think that is respectable. And I think that's a true valuation of the player. And it's in reflection of the market as well, because that is the going rate for a top quality centre back like your Saliba and those type of players. So yeah, let's see what happens with Konate. But feel free to drop a comment, let me know your thoughts on Konate. Do you think he'll stay or do you think he'll end up leaving next summer? Feel free to drop a comment and let me know. Just gonna go through a couple of comments before we close the show. Delulu Steve says, Ozzy just seen a tifo from an Iraqi club paying respects to Diogo. Zako's SC respect. Big up to them. That's a nice touch from a club, and it's good to see that it's not just European clubs; it's clubs all over the world that are feeling the sad news of Jota passing away. So that's a nice touch from the Iraqi team there. And that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to Ozan Kabak for becoming a new member today. He is an FTP champ. That's what I like to label my members. Kieran, Royal Red, Chibuke. Who else do we have? Still Lulu Steve. Big up for your comments as always. Um, and yeah, that is it for today, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. In terms of upcoming content, I will be doing a live watch along of the PSG versus Real Madrid game tomorrow. And I will be doing our weekly transfer talk show, possibly Thursday night or Friday night. So the best thing to do is hit that notification bell so you know what time I'm going live. And follow me on social media for all the latest updates. You can follow me at Aussie.ftp on Instagram. And you can also follow me at Aussie_FTP on X/Twitter. So that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care, stay safe, and I hope to speak with you all very, very soon. Goodbye.